David, your bunker is ready. You wanted to complain about the Primarch Lion L. Johnson?
Yeah, so the lion, the first, the Primaris Angelus Mortis, is usually considered to be the master tactician of the 18 to 21 Primarchs of the Imperial Legions. He's a master swordsman and is often stated as being the better option for War Master to Horus Lupercal. Now, I can go into his lore a bit, but I want to talk about his stats in the game. Here's his basic data sheet right here. He has a version in the Horus Heresy too, but there's some major differences. Mainly this ability here. The Emperor's Shield is the shield emblem on the breast of the Emperor of Mankind in pictures of the Emperor like this one. At the beginning of 10th edition, it reduces enemy wound rolls by 1. Not only that, but if you get an unmodified 6 on a save roll, the Lion deals 1 mortal wound to the unit who hit you. Last week, they announced some changes to the Lion, and this is one of them. What got changed? All of it. It got deleted. Now the Lion has 9 toughness with 10 wounds, and a 2+ armor save with a 3+ invuln save. With Deep Strike, Fight First, the Lion is capable of being an absolute bulldozer of a tank. If there's friendly Astartes infantry models within 6 inches of him, he gains the Lone Operative ability, which makes him even tankier. And we haven't even gone into his Primarch ability. In all honesty, the Primarch ability is 3 abilities in one, which you can change every round of battle. This abilities do different things depending on the Primarch, and they're not worth bothering over right now. So, removing this ability, we'll compare to the other 4 Primarchs in a minute, but let's talk about the other changes to the Lion. There's only one other change, and it's surprisingly massive. His melee weapon, the sword Fealty. The sweep version of it had its damage characteristic reduced from 2 to 1. Now, with a 16 attack characteristic, with a 2+ weapon skill, we can assume 2/3 of them will hit on average, which will mean about 9 will hit more or less. Sustained hits 1, we can add 2 or 3. Let's assume 10 hits average, 10 to 12. Then a 6 strength against a 4 toughness, assuming an intercessor is the standard, meaning he'll need to roll a 3+ to actually wound. Let's assume that of those 10, we get 6 that go through. Then we have the Intercessor's armor saves. A safe assumption is about half of them will get through, so 3 wounds, 3 damage, 1.5 intercessors. The Swordmaster of the Dark Angels can't kill 1 basic soldier in a single hit. But maybe that's fine, especially if the other Primarchs are essentially the same, right? We've got 4 to compare to, 1 Imperium Primarch, Robote Guilliman, and 3 Daemon Primarchs, Magnus the Red, Angron, and Mortarion. There's one more change to the Lion though. He costs 380 points in the Index, but in the Codex he'll cost 365. A 15 point difference, which means fielding him will only grant you 1 extra enhancement now on one of your unnamed characters. The point change means absolutely nothing, given he is now essentially just your bog standard Marine with a slightly better hit chance. Well, let's compare the abilities and the melee weapons of the Lion to his ally, Robote. Robote's defense ability is Armor of Fate, spelled with a U, like how Brits tend to for some reason. This ability lets him get back up from being put on the ground. This ability is not as good as the shield if you ask me, but it still keeps Guilliman in the fight a little longer. Meanwhile, the Blueberry has 2 melee weapons, the Emperor's Sword and the Hand of Dominion, which sort of act similar, but one with more hits and less power, similar to a sweep versus strike build. Now, I've heard you can use all melee weapons in a fight phase, but every time I've played, I've only seen each model use one weapon equipped, so let's assume that's how it works. The Emperor's Sword is close to the sweep fealty block. It has 14 attacks, less than fealty, with a 2+ weapon skill. Now, this weapon doesn't have sustained hits, it has devastating wounds, which I argue is even better because it doesn't allow saves on a 6 on the wound dice. 8 strength against 4 toughness is doubled, so you only need to roll a 2+ to get through, with a 3 armor penetration. That's no different. It also deals 1 more damage, 2 damage total, meaning every hit will kill an intercessor, assuming they don't save. So, all in all, Robote has the better melee weapon, and he still keeps his defensive ability. But what about the traitor Primarchs? We've got 3 to consider. I'll slam these out quickly, I promise. Each of these has a Primarch ability. Again, we'll ignore these area of effect sort of things because they don't change how we're looking at it for this. Starting with defensive abilities, the Death Guard's Mortarion has the ability to make allies within 6 inches of him ignore any and all modifiers to any characteristics, rolls, or tests made, excluding the saving throws. The Thousand Suns Magnus the Red lets friendly units within 6 inches of him add 1 to their psychic attack hits and wound rolls. And Angry Ron of the World Eaters gets to come back from the dead by using his army rule. Now, we haven't even talked about melee attacks for the traitors yet, so let's vice versa the order. Angron has 1 weapon with 2 modes for it, strike and sweep. We'll compare the sweep modes. 18 attacks, that's insane. 2+ weapon skill and an 8 strength, with a armor penetration of 2, which is actually lower than the G-Mans and the Lions, and 2 damage. A single hit will kill 1 intercessor, and he's got more hits with more power. Magnus the Red actually has worse melee than literally everyone. 14 hits on his sweep with an 8 strength and a 1 armor penetration and 1 damage. The only bonus it has is the psychic ability, which doesn't do much really. But the Thousand Suns is more of a ranged army than a melee one. So how about Mortarion? His melee weapon is Silence. It also has 2 weapon modes, Sweep and Strike, both with lethal hits, which means 6s on the hit rolls automatically succeed their wound rolls. Now, this is not to be confused with Devastating Wounds, which on 6 wound rolls, no saves are made. Silence has 15 attacks with 17 strength, slightly lower than everyone else's, with a 1 armor penetration and 1 damage as well. Now, the lethal hits that makes this ability just better than sustained hits. Mortarion still can't kill an intercessor with a single hit, but the lethal hits make it more likely that he actually will. The sustained hits just give you another chance, while lethal hits makes it more likely. You could argue that it could add up to more, but that's a mathematics argument and I'm not great with math. The most powerful Primarch right now is Robote Guilliman or Angron, but Angron doesn't have a ranged attack, so I'll argue the G-Man. The weakest is not the Lion, but Magnus, but his abilities, similar to Mortarion's, make his own army stronger. The Lion, without his defensive ability, like all other Primarchs, is falling close behind. Despite being lowered in points, he's just not worth spending the points on. He's not impossible to field, but he's far from a good warlord. Danny, in my opinion, the Lion is a joke, and you haven't said anything thing for a while. He's behind me, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Know I can walk through the warp, right? Literally across the galaxy and through locked doors.
I just want to go home. Shove off.